3.5 months ago, we ended up putting up a video talking about Call of Duty World War II and some differences that were only found in other areas of the world. And honestly, firstly, it doesn't feel like we did that 3.5 months ago already. But having seen that video soar up to the #1 spot as the most popular video we've ever done on the channel, I figured, you know what, let's try and do a little bit of a follow-up, see if there's anything else out there that we can take a look at that was changed for specific regions of the world. And lo and behold, there were a few changes that were adopted for various different regions around the globe. Some definitely recognizable if you see them in context and in the game itself, but some not so much, and some a little bit more on the smaller end. So last time we did one of these, a lot of the stuff was hidden in plain view, if you want to put it that way, and that's going to be very similar to how this is in this follow-up video. Some things you might recognize immediately, some maybe not so much, and you'd have to maybe play on a little bit further to try and actually look for it in the game itself. But today we're going to be taking a look at 4 more COD World War II changes only found in other countries. So with that said, let's talk about some changes. Previously we talked about 4 different changes, 2 in particular with a D-Day opening mission, 1 about censorship in general, and then 1 in censorship in terms of a mission that was actually altered before the game itself even launched. The first of that mentioned D-Day sequence was one whenever which we are getting off our Higgins boat, we're about to just jump out, but then we hit heavy machine gun fire and one of our squad mates' body is absolutely torn apart. That actually didn't happen in the Japanese version, and then also in the German and Japanese versions, there was a sequence in which when you're actually on the beach, you have to retrieve one of the explosives from underneath your squad mates as well, to which in the standard versions of the game, there's a limb on that soldier that is completely blown off, but it is not like that in those censored versions. And then also we talked about the censorship of the swastika, in which how that is not allowed. It is completely illegal in Germany, so therefore that had to be altered in those region-specific changes as well to be replaced with the Iron Cross. And I have seen some comments on that video as well saying they saw it outside of just German-specific regions, but for the majority and the standard version of the game, that was something that was actually shipped with the swastikas intact and alterations made to various different builds for different regions. And the final thing we talked about was the complete change-up of a situation on the mission Liberation. Whenever Rousseau goes into the basements, if you so choose to go and explore a little bit further, you can end up seeing that there is a resistance woman being dragged into a, say, closet or other back room like that. And in the original versions, you'd be able to hear the soldier unzipping his pants as if to engage in sexual assault, but that was changed so that did not make the final cut of the game due off of Australian regulations. So this time around, we end up having some stuff that I'll start out with one that is actually very immediate and very obvious if you play any other various region-specific build of the game. That being the announcers for each different language that is inclusive within the game itself. Now, of course, there are different things in which you can put the subtitles on, you can change the language in your game as well, but for actual various different regions, the actual player audio and announcer audio is completely switched around. It's not a simple subtitles thing at that point, though that is, of course, offered as well. One thing that I think is very interesting in game development like this sort of thing is that you see all these behind-the-scenes documentaries or something like that in which they showcase a little bit of the process of making the game, the mocapping process, and then also when it finally comes to it, the overdubbing and voice acting. That's something in which, while a good portion of that can be captured in the motion capture for the actual original footage, that's something though that whenever you put an overdub to it, you need to contract different voice actors for each different region. So for what you'll be seeing in the background and listening to, that's something in which there were Japanese, German, Italian versions of the game and voice actors contracted to have their part in Call of Duty World War II, though the spotlight might never actually be on them. Take a listen.
Ich soll also dem Kerl meine Uhr geben und denkst so, was zur Hölle kann der denn mit meiner Uhr wollen? Der ist Captain von einem gottverdammten Footballteam. Aber
ich habe in der Grundausbildung Freunde gefunden, die alle mit mir im Boot sind. Alle haben Schiss, aber keiner lässt es sich anmerken. Ich habe Sassmann in der ersten Woche gehasst, aber jetzt ist er der beste Kumpel, den ich habe. Er zieht Ärger an. Wenn nicht schon Krieg wäre, würde er einen anzetteln.
それで時計をよこせって言われたが、仮にもアメフトのキャプテンがどうして俺の時計を欲しがるんだ？で行こうとしたら
親友になった連中は同じボートに乗った。みんな怖かったが、それを口にはしなかったよ。初めのうちはザスマンが嫌いだったが、今は一番の親友だ。いつも問題を起こすやつで、戦争が始まっていなければ自分から追っ始め。
Poi lui mi chiede l'orologio e io gli faccio: che cazzo te ne fai del mio orologio? Sei il capitano della cazzo di squadra di football, così
mi sono fatto buoni amici in addestramento, tutti imbarcati con me. Ce la facciamo sotto, ma nessuno lo dà a vedere. La prima settimana di addestramento odiavo zio Osman, ma ora è il mio migliore amico. È un piantagrane. Se non ci fosse una guerra, sarebbe il primo a far...
The next things we're going to be talking about here in this video actually primarily deal with more so the Japanese versus the base version of the game, because Japanese video games have to adhere to a lot of regulations, and I'm not going to pretend like I'm one that knows the culture entirely to tell you why X, Y, and Z have to be changed and why they have to be something that is explicitly understood and then followed by in terms of rule sets, but it is something that the Japanese versions take their gore, mutilation, and other things very seriously in the sense that they don't want it to be in the media that their citizens are consuming. So therefore that is cause for much change in some various games, though in these alterations it is something that one is bigger than others, but the other two are still once again things you have to kind of consciously look for. So that said, the next things that we'll be talking about are the death sequences that are actually altered within Call of Duty World War II's campaign in the Japanese version compared to that of the base version. So like we said, Japanese censoring is quite strange in what is defined as too gory sometimes. For example, your normal run-of-the-mill gunshot wound is normally fine. That's just the standard blood texture that's splattered on the character model, and a sort of metallic covering almost, because it looks kind of weird at sometimes, if you know what I mean, but maybe I'm not describing it entirely too well. But when you break into the heavy stuff, the artillery, the other high-powered weaponry, that's where Japanese censorship comes into play a little bit more. Last video, like we've recapped, we detailed one instance of it, but I didn't really look too far into the many more deaths in the campaign that could have been examined. So there are a few that got the cover up, starting with the one once again in that D-Day mission, where a machine gun round completely tore through our other squad mate's face and ripped it in half, leaving a spine and other innards just to fall on Daniels as he tries to push it off and get out of the Higgins boat. Now, unlike the Japanese version, we see that gore in a majority of the releases of the game, but the true Japanese port does not have it. Instead, once again, it uses that metallic overlay of blood on a character model. But again, there's a couple other instances of when this happens throughout the campaign. One very similar to the D-Day mission, but one that happens in the escape portion of the mission Stronghold in particular. So check this out.
Oh, Jesus. I got you. Hold on. No.
Everyone out now! Time to go. Get him.
Oh, Jesus. I got you. Hold on. No.
Look out! Time to go. Get him.
Oh, Jesus.
I got. Time to go. Get him.
Now the weird part to me is that I don't know where they draw the line in terms of what gets covered up and what doesn't. Because there is another sequence of events in the mission Death Factory in which, once again, you get kind of thrown down the hill, you see your vision with your brother Paul, but then you end up seeing that Briggs, your one squad mate, is dead next to you. He's laying there on the forest floor, and he's got spikes of branches just stabbed through him, one in his side, one in his chest, I believe, and then one viciously protruding out of his neck. So you'd think with how the ruling of these Japanese versions go, that gets censored, right? Well, it's actually not. That was actually still in the Japanese version at its core. Nothing was changed around about that thing. So again, kind of interesting to me that that sort of thing gets covered up, but then something else doesn't. But moving along a little bit further, once again, this doesn't really deal with censorship, more so just a change into the general visualization of the game and what you see at its core. When you take a look at Call of Duty World War II, one thing that you probably won't notice immediately, but it's there in plain view all the time, is the menu fonts. Now, this is gonna sound kind of weird, but of course, in the Japanese versions, the font itself is different, and that is just, of course, to display that of the Japanese dialect and the writing systems in place there. But when you take a look at it, some of the things that you'd think wouldn't be changed in terms of, say, numbering are changed. And the one thing that really stood out to me whenever I immediately took a look at this at some of the Japanese gameplay and, say, multiplayer and other menu selections were the numbers, simply because of the thickness of how they were approached. If you take a look at these standard versions, of course, you see your bold typeface, that is the numbers. But when you take a look at the Japanese version in particular, the numbers are actually quite slim compared to the other region-specific variations of the game around the world. Now again, I don't pretend to be an expert on the culture or the reasoning as to why, but if I were to guess, it's basically to fit a typeface that would be inclusive to the Japanese dialect, and each of those fonts that would go into the standard variations of the game might not be compatible with the Japanese lettering. That's something if you say were to go into Notepad and try and save something you've pulled off of Google Translate from English to Japanese and try and save it as a text document, you'll be prompted with an error saying that the characters in the document are in Unicode format, which will be lost if you end up saving that. So the format of the lettering itself is completely different, so therefore different fonts probably aren't compatible, and therefore the entire typeface of the entire build of the game has to be changed out. So that's why, in my books, that would be my explanation for it. The final thing that I want to talk about deals a little bit with zombies because, as we talk about, once again, there is a little bit of a censorship for the blood and gore, but it's not as to the extreme as you may think. When I first initially thought about this, I was expecting zombies to jump in and not really have any blood or guts spurting out of them, but it seems like it's just a little bit of a toned down version now of this in Nazi zombies within World War II. Now, I'll be the first to say perhaps it is just some bad faulty testing in which I've seen some of the gameplay comparing and contrasting. Maybe it's the very low end of the spectrum compared to the high end of the spectrum or something like that, but whenever you take a look at different things like machine gun shots, doesn't seem like there's as much of a spray and carnage that is unleashed on the zombies whenever you end up blowing their limbs off or some other method of taking them out. But upon from what I've seen, it seems like there is some subtle changes here as well to this to make it a little less gory, once again kind of adhering to what the Japanese rule sets are in place for video games and other media, so it wouldn't surprise me. But that said, that is where we're going to conclude this episode and this follow-up little video for 4 more COD World War II changes found only in other countries. That said, I'd love to get your thoughts and feedback down there in the comment section down below. Is there anything else that you have seen? Is there anything else you want me to try and dig up and maybe do another follow-up video here for this, or anything of the like? Let me know your favorite change that we've discussed as well down there in the comment section down below. Love to get your thoughts and feedback, but hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and if you guys did, make sure you drop a like down below, and of course, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding Call of Duty World War II. Changes like this in different regions of the world, updates, news, best class setups, tips, tricks, all that good stuff. We got you covered here up on the channel, so if any of it interests you, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. And if you guys want to follow me over on Twitter, that's the best place to get connected with me outside of YouTube. Practically live on Twitter, so if you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, link is down there in the description below. And finally, if you guys want to follow me over on Instagram, I'm trying to get a bit more active over there as well, so if you guys want to toss a follow over there, that link is also in the description below. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Hopefully you guys are having a fantastic day. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.